Good evening, Wisconsin. Happy Faded Friday to everybody. Joining live here on the podcast. Shout out to the folks on Twitter's been really gaining some steam. Facebook's always the top dog. YouTube, we just hit our I think it was 200 subscribers. Instagram's still funky. They don't let us respond to comments, so we don't really mess with Instagram too much at the moment. But appreciate everybody swinging out. Hopefully, your week is winding down. Got that bowl packed or them gummies ready, whatever you prefer. Heath, what's up? Heath is the first one here tonight. Let's get it, buddy. Thanks for stopping out. Always like to kick things off by thanking the people who make this thing possible. Shout out to Higher Love. If you're headed to the UP or even if you're in that general vicinity, the UP ain't too far away. Definitely worth the trip up there to Higher Love. Get the quality products, the deli style flour. Pick it out, smell it first. It's beautiful. Love their product lineup, top to bottom. And the staff out there is awesome. If you're in Wisconsin, highly recommend our friends at Ignite Dispensary. Shout out to them for being a show sponsor as well. They are across the state. They are in Milwaukee, Manitowoc. I might be able to swing by their Milwaukee location tomorrow with the event that I'll be at. But also Manitowoc, Superior, Spooner, Hayward, New Richmond. They get around, man. They get around Wisconsin. Randy's next up. Hey, what's up, buddy? Thanks for stopping out, Randy. Much love. Appreciate you showing your support. Just a real quick update. We had a great meeting this morning. Nothing official, so I don't want to go anything too into detail and with names or that kind of thing. But I really hope we're starting to break some doors down. We're showing up. People know who we are and are showing that they feel legalization is something that should definitely happen as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. I'll keep you posted as we go. Really excited for tonight's guest. Actually went to school with this fella, and he was actually a great role model and has continued to be as far as activism goes. And just he helped me realize there is things other than sales out there. I know that sounds kind of funny, but just as far as you can be a voice, you can try to be a voice for people, a group of people, and somebody who just kind of helped me along on this path, and somebody who has a lot of patience. I tried watching the Farm Bill on YouTube, that little meeting that they had, and I had to look away like every 10 seconds or vent to myself, like, what are these people doing? And he's out there in DC sitting through the thing, taking notes, that kind of thing. So super appreciate his time. Let's get him in here. It's Marcus. What's going on, Marcus?
Hey, good to see everybody tonight. Glad to be on the podcast with my man Bobby Beans.
Yeah.
Always good to see you, Bobby.
Yeah, likewise, bro.
And looking forward to the conversation tonight and just chatting out all things hemp. And if we blend into cannabis, then so be it. So
Sure. If you guys
yeah,
got questions while he's here, just drop them in the comments like you do. But Marcus, what you've got kind of a pretty cool story as far as what maybe kind of led to your activism or whatnot. Can you just give us a little background on what got
yeah,
you started in hemp?
yeah. So it's like right when we got out of school, Bobby Beans, I saw this movie called Standing Silent Nation, and it was about Alex Whiteplume and his struggle to push industrial hemp on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And I saw it was like the B reel of it. It was pretty cool. It was at the National Museum of American Indian Archives in Washington D.C. and it was awesome. I was really inspired by it, and so I say about age 18, I became a Native American rights advocate and a hemp advocate. And over time, it just kind of I'd get into different spaces and I'd talk about hemp, but it wasn't really mainstream until about the 2014 Farm Bill. And 2015 rolled around. My tribe, the Menominee, I'm a member of the Menominee Indian tribe, and my tribe decided to grow hemp. And so I was a student researcher at the time, focused on agriculture, and so I was a part of that whole project. And then it was unfortunately raided by the feds in October 23rd, 2015, and it kind of springboarded me into my activism. And I did a lot of work on getting hemp legal. Give me a second here, and let's see, share screen.
Oh, are we doing something? Oh, we're doing the screen here.
Do the screen share. Okay. What is it? I gotta allow something here. Scroll
Yeah.
bars. Okay, it should be all right.
Thank Jesse. That's crazy. that looks like you've gone through some stuff there, man. And
All right, so you guys see this? You see this picture?
oh, yep, here we go. Add the stage. There we
All
go.
right, all right. If you look, there's Walker sitting right in that chair right there,
Oh yeah.
and then Jesse Kramer is the guy in the glasses.
Yep.
Patrick Teston is the clean cut guy,
Okay.
and then the guy right behind um, Jesse Kramer with the glasses. That's Ken Anderson. He's a legend in,
Okay.
and he's actually a Wisconsinite too.
Okay.
And so, like, mad shout out to Ken Anderson and Legacy Hemp. Really good guy, and he did a lot of work in getting hemp legal in Wisconsin. But if you look behind Teston, you see this guy in the background.
Yeah, get it.
Supposed to be in that picture. I kind of got flack for that. I work real closely with the Farm Bureau, and Rob Richard, like, he's like a bulldog. He's like the Badger State Bulldog, man. Like, really good state lobbyist.
Sure.
And he got me into the signing, and I remember, like, we were all getting ready to do the picture, and I'm like sitting there, and I'm like standing all ready to do it, like way in the back. Rob comes up to me, and he goes, "All right, gets himself ready. Wait a minute, I'm a lobbyist. I'm not supposed to be in this picture." And so he walks away. I'm like, I'm only a lobbyist on paper, Rob. Like, I just did it so I wouldn't get
Sure.
in trouble. Like, I'm staying in this picture. And so I stayed in the picture and I got it. But Rob's cool. We're really cool. You know, like, it ain't
You
like,
look like you might be the most serious person in that picture right there, Mark.
but yeah, that's my claim to fame, man. I even have a pen that Walker signed the first hemp bill. So
Oh,
2017
sure.
Act 100.
Yep.
That's the one that I'm tied to. I didn't play a role in the second one. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. So it all kind of started with like basically when the feds come in and raid, that's when is that when you kind of first felt a little more like, okay, I'm gonna try to help represent the people because I know it's not just me that this
Yeah.
happens
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Well, I guess
Or
if we're gonna get like personal on the Bobby Beans podcast, I actually got popped when I was 18 at a campground for cannabis, and wasn't going anywhere. Didn't plan on going anywhere. I just planned to stay at camping, and I got caught. And I remember sitting in my friend's basement because, like, you know, after you get out of jail, you just kind of feel all weird.
yeah.
So I just like hung out in his basement for like the day, just sleeping. And I remember at one point we're talking, and I'm like, you know, I'm gonna make cannabis legal someday. Like, you know, we don't have to do this stuff no more. And my friend's like, if you're gonna do that, you got to get the Republicans to back you, and you'll probably get hemp legal first. And 18 years old, man, August 2007.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that, and it's been a wild ride, Bobby. But
Sure.
yeah, I became an activist after we got raided. You know, as an advocate turned activist, and then I got an opportunity to meet John Trudell. And if you guys don't know John Trudell, you just gotta Google him and check him out. He's a musician, he's a poet, he's an actor, and he's an activist. He was the chairman of the American Indian Movement at one point. But John was really big on hemp because of what happened with Alex. And so Alex White Plume, South Dakota. And so for me, when I went to go see John, John was basically like, kind of like at the end of his time. You know, he was cancer and everything else. So he basically turned his organization over to me to make hemp legal in Wisconsin. And he was like, you got to dig up the rich history of hemp in Wisconsin, and you got to get the farmers to back it. And so I listened to what he told me to do, and that's how that all happened. Digged up all this rich history of hemp. Let me see if I can find something here quick.
Yeah, it's crazy. Any of the stuff I've shared with you guys here on the page, Let's Legalize Wisconsin, all the cool information, news articles, old photos and stuff. That's Marcus's time digging into all that. And yeah, it is crazy how deep Wisconsin was into hemp. And that I think that is a great approach as far as with some of the older crowd or the farmers, just trying to bring the history. I feel like history, goes a long way in what feels right or what feels just. And the fact that, just a generation or two back. We were pioneers in the hemp industry. So I think digging up that and finding a way to share that. Oh, what's my camera doing? Is a big. Why are we fading in and out here? Or blurry. Camera's smoking that up.
Trying to
Camera's used to seeing smoke on this side. While you're looking for that, I wanted to ask you. So when it came to like sitting down with the folks at the council for the farm bill,
yeah.
how did you what you kind of explained a little bit to me, but like how do you find a way to sit through all that, man? What's your there just seems to be a lot. Well, I was mainly, in the intro, and my understanding is that's
Yeah.
how politics work is
So,
you kind of get your beefs out right away, but man, it was taking forever. But
yeah.
what do you watch for when you're attending something like that, and what are you taking notes on?
So I'm basically in my full-time job. I'm a policy and strategy specialist for a nonprofit organization in DC that works on federal policy. So I'm always sitting in committee hearings and listening and taking notes, whatever it really is, whether it be crop insurance or reference prices, nutrition, beginning farmers. I mean, I cover everything. And for me, um, when I look, what I'm looking for in certain things is kind of like sound bites. Like what are these politicians saying? That are they receptive to one thing? Are they receptive to the other? And I'm just kind of taking cues, because everybody's always like, oh, the right's not going to support this or the left's not going to support that, but really they really do, and you just have to listen in and figure out what kind of the questions are. So talking about the May 23rd markup of the farm bill, I flew out to DC, and usually this is what I learned in school. I went to school. I was like Tommy Boy, basically. Like, I went to college for I think like 10 years or something like that. But I
Sure.
bounced around, so I like have 4 or 5 different universities I've been to. 2 of them were based in Washington D.C. One of them was American University, and then the other one is the George Washington University, like right, like honestly, like stone throw from the White House. And so when I was at George Washington, I learned from a lot of different lobbyists, because I studied political management and lobbying. And one of the things that the seasoned lobbyists taught us were like, if you want to go and like get face to face with lawmakers, because sometimes you can't even like get a meeting with a senator. So what you do is you stake out these committee hearings, because they're all coming off the elevator right at the,
Sure.
right before committee starts. And so you can catch them or you can catch them afterwards. So it's really important to get to those committee hearings like really early. Like whenever the House congressional office is open, which is usually like 7:30 in the morning, you want to be there between like 7:30 and 9 a.m. to really
Okay.
get a good seat in there. So like just to kind of paint a picture of where I was. So I was sitting in a congressional House office hallway for a couple hours before the committee hearing started. So it started at 11. I was there around like 8:30. So basically waiting it out. And there's not a lot of room in there. So you can sit there and like not everybody will get in. So like by like 10:30, all these like hemp lobbyists started coming off of the elevator, and dude, the line was like all the way back. It was an L shape, like all the way back. So like
Sure.
there's no way anybody's gonna get there. And I kind of giggled because I was like, oh, I guess you guys don't know Washington that well, do you? And so I'm sitting there and they start letting people in, and it's like this guy in front of me, and it's like me and my colleague. And the guy in front of us is like immigration rights and farm workers and all that stuff. So basically the line stops like right before him. So it's like him, me, my colleague. We're the 3 people who couldn't get in the room. And so we're sitting there, and they're like, you have to wait for these people to like leave, and then they'll let more people back in. Like that's basically how it is, because there's no room.
Sure.
And so we're sitting there waiting it out. And then at one point I had to take a phone call from my boss. So I was like, I had to like step out of line, and I gave like some snacks to my colleague. I'm like, if you get in there, like here's some food. And
Sure.
I leave, I take a phone call, I come back. He did get in, and I'm just waiting in the line, just hanging out. And by that time, that had been like lunch, I'd say. They broke for lunch. And so I'm sitting there hanging out, and Derek Van Orden, he's the congressional congressman from the 3rd district of Wisconsin. He's a good guy. I like him. Like, you just gotta call him Derek. He doesn't like, he's not really big in congressman. So
Gotcha.
Derek gets off of the elevator, and I'm trying to like wave to him, and he didn't see me at first, and so he walks in, but then like a few minutes later, he walks back out, and he's looking for somebody, and I'm like, Derek, and he's all like, Marcus, what the fuck are you doing here? And that's what another thing I like about Derek. He's like he's just
Right. He's not right acting or anything.
I love it because he's real,
Yeah.
And so basically, I'm like, oh, I'm just waiting to get into this committee hearing. He says, fuck that, get over here. And so he lets me in, and he bypasses the Capitol Police, bypasses the intern that's guarding the door, and he gets me in there, and there's nowhere to sit. So I'm just sitting and talking to my colleague while it's all going on. It's still a break. Everyone's still slowly coming back in. And then when they gabbled in, the staff were like, either you find a seat or you have to get out. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to leave because I can't get out. I could see like the intern through the doorway, and he's talking to the Capitol Police, and he's pointing at me, and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta get out of here. So I leave, and I go sit in the cafeteria. I get like a salad to eat and something to drink. And my friend and colleague was like, hey, I gotta leave at like 4:30. So if you want to like come in here, you can take my seat. I was like, sweet. So I finished up.
Oh, you got the late shift.
Yeah, I got the late shift.
How long that thing go?
Late shift. Dude, it went to like 11:30 midnight, man. Like it was crazy.
They should pay you for sitting that long, like having to listen to them that long.
Well, I got paid. So basically, I get in there and I sit down, and I think you were watching a lot of the opening statements. So all the committee people went through their opening statements from like 11 to 4 o'clock. And then by about like 4:30, that's when the amendments start coming in. What they did is this thing called block manager amendments, where they basically stick them all together, and they all have to vote on that whole package. You can't vote individually out. So the Mary Miller amendment got stuck in that package. Gotcha. And that's when there was a lot of debate around hemp and what was going on over there. And so I'm sitting there and I'm watching it all like play out live, and I'm like, this is awesome. I'm so glad I like waited and got in and was patient enough to get in there. And I really admired Derek Van Orden and his responses to the industry, and how Congress basically let the cat out of the bag in the 2018 Farm Bill. Like, you let the cat out of the bag of the 2018 Farm Bill, and now you're gonna like stop this industry where there's like tens of thousands of jobs that are now created because of this little piece with cannabinoids, hemp-derived cannabinoids. And so I really was really happy to hear him just talk about what he thought the industry just should be left alone. Just don't mess with it, because it's your guys' mistake. You guys passed the law, and now we're suffering the consequences. Like, not really consequences, but the ramifications of what happened. And they didn't really know. And when I remember seeing the definition when it was finally passed, I'm like, oh, whoever did that was pretty smart.
Right. Left her pretty wide open.
Yeah. So Derek voted against it, and it passed, obviously. And then what I really liked was him saying at the end, he's like, either we strip this out of the bill on the floor, or we'll do it in committee. And what he meant was like conference committee. So when the Senate and the House pass separate bills, basically they have to come together and form a conference committee from both sides, and then they hash out the whole thing, and then they pass it back on the floors again. So it sounded like Derek's going to be in the conference committee when it happens. And so I'm like, oh, great. We have a champion for hemp in there who's, totally for the industry.
Sure.
So I'm trying to figure out. Do you have that picture I gave you, Bobby, of that of what it looked like inside the?
Oh, where? Give me just a minute. That was funny. Funny how that one turned out. Wait, can I? Oh, it's on my phone. I don't think I have it on the computer. Marcus likes to uh, break his phone camera. I guess you'd say.
Yeah, I got some. I got some
How can
butterfingers.
you?
What can I say there?
How can you get that on here? Real quick, while I'm trying to pull that over here, do you have? Was there somebody was asking real quick if the Menominee tribe or just if you know of any specific tribe that like do we is there a rough idea how far hemp goes back with native culture?
That's a good question.
I mean, I'm sure
Um,
it's I'm sure nobody knows a specific date that it was
yeah,
first like found, but I'm assuming it goes
I
back
would.
sometime or
I would say. Well, so this is funny because it's very controversial because there's a lot of people who say that tribes never used hemp or cannabis sativa, but we what we used was dog bane, and I get that, I understand that. But then I found this really interesting document in the Library of Congress a few years back, and it was a textile fibers of northeastern America, and it covered all these different tribes. And I started looking at the index, right when you're like looking at the front, and it's all giving all these different Latin names for the definitions for each one. So there's one for Indian hemp, which is dogbane, and then they have one for cannabis sativa as well. And so what's interesting is that I've been able to find different historical artifacts in different museums and historical societies throughout the whole country. And then you start asking other tribes, and they're like, yeah, we used hemp. And so there's this thing that there's people saying that we didn't use hemp, and then there's people saying we did use hemp. Now, is it native to the Americas? No, it's not. I would say it's definitely. Oh, here it is. So
oh, I didn't mean to pop it up right away, but
no, it's cool. It's
we'll
cool.
flip flop back and forth quick. So
Um,
yeah.
and so I'll talk about this picture in a second here, but um, so it's not native here, but I think that it at one point traveled through the trade routes throughout America. And so some of my work before um, in hemp and previous research I've done around tribes, I started looking at a lot of the trade routes, and I went to like the Bureau of Indian Affairs, so Department of the Interior, Washington D.C. They have a library there, and
Mhm.
so I went into the library and started looking around, and I found all this documentation showing all these old trade routes, and they all were like stemming back from going to California, and then there's some stuff that was coming up from Chile, because I know there was some documentation of hemp in Chile years ago, like around the 1600s.
Sure.
So finding all this stuff and coming up with the theory of it happened two different ways. One, it came over with the colonists around 14, 1500, 1600, and that's how it was traded. Or the Chinese, they've been known back in the day to like travel by sea for a long time, where they had the whole ships and everything set up where they had fish in there, and living and everything, so that they could actually live and eat on the ship.
Sure.
I think what happened is that the Chinese came over on a ship, traded, because there's documentation from the um, Department of Interior documents that there are tribes along the Pacific coast that only traded in seed. That's their only thing they
Ah,
traded in, and so that's where I think it came from as well. There's another theory of like it coming up from South America along, Central America, and then up through like New Mexico and kind of spread out from there. And I've heard that too. So there's a lot of different theories out there around where kind of hemp kind of or cannabis sativa came into it. But I mean,
and real quick, I've seen dog bane before, but what are the main differences? Does it have like is it
you
something
know,
that you smoke or
it's
like for relief or is it just more
dog bane was so some of the things that I've seen it come be made in is like bags or
okay? So more like the
burden
text.
straps to carry things. I did locate a cannabis sativa bowstring for like a bow and arrow.
Oh, really?
in New York City. But when I went to go to that archives, that that artifact was missing. So for the time it was documented in that book from the Library of Congress, the time I showed up, it just like, I don't know. They're like, I don't know what happened to it. And I'm just like, that's some bullshit. Bullshit. Like, so yeah, I have found things that are made of hemp. The Meskwaki, like the Sac and Fox. So like Black Hawk is, known throughout history as a Sac and Fox tribal member.
Sure.
His tribe actually used hemp for prisoner ties. So you can go to the Milwaukee Public Museum and find these prisoner
really?
ties made of hemp, and they're really strong. And then they
Sure.
have these like little like jingles on them for like
So you can tell if they're trying to
yeah,
run away in their shackles or something.
yeah. But what's cool is like the bag in the Milwaukee Public Museum made of hemp. It was found in like Leona, so like just north of
Okay.
the reservation, and it's cool because it has these like spiritual, I guess, like entities from our culture. So like one side is a thunderbird, and the other side is a water panther.
Oh,
And
that's
so
cool.
it's really, yeah, it's very interesting. So
Real quick, I wanted to look at that just to see, does this look right? Or because I want to see what the hemp prisoner ties might look like, which is
yeah,
pretty much what I'd expect. But is this what you had seen? How do I get this back up here? Like
yep,
that kind of?
yep,
That's cool. That's
yep,
crazy.
yep. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Looks like Vibing in the Pines says nets as well. I'm assuming that
yep,
would make sense. That nets are
definitely
pretty
nuts for sure. And I
making a few
know
nets.
like the Tuscarora tribe has used it. Like that's more like East Coast. They use them for like shirts. So um, interesting. It's an interesting history and theory around when hemp showed up to the Americas. So I think the it's still out there of like when it showed up, like the time frame, but
Sure.
there's different pieces that show it. And I found some other things too of just how the tribes are like talked about in like news articles and stuff. I found this news article from like I think it was like 1778, and they were talking about Indian hemp. So I didn't know if that was the dog bane or the cannabis,
Right.
but it's interesting. So
And real quick, Marcus, just trying to picture when you're talking like earlier in your time with hemp and talking to different tribes about growing it. Was it? It sounds like it sounds like it's not just a cut and dry. It's more of like a tribe to tribe basis as to their stance on hemp. Is that fair to say?
yeah, I would
Okay,
say so. And I think it's also like based on um, did hemp grow in that region or not? Has it always
sure,
been growing in that region? Yeah, it all really depends. And then like I said, because I said it's controversial in terms of how it happens. There's some tribes that are like they fight me about it. Like there's one tribal member I know who's a Caddo. Oh man, she's a piece of work. But yeah, she's always trying to like, oh, that Mark Grignon, he doesn't know what he's talking about, this and that. I'm like, it's just a theory. Like,
right.
why can't I have a theory?
Is it and is it so is it more so essentially is it if they feel it was a part of their history for the most part those tribes are cool with it, or is it a misconception that hemp is cannabis and it's more of like a drug
I think
as far as
what's
like what the
interesting,
concern is?
what's interesting about it all is when you start having conversations about tribes using hemp traditionally, like people get really excited about it in tribal communities. Like, really? That's awesome. And then they want to know more. Um, some folks, I think there's also just still the remnants of like reefer madness era, the just say no era, and like, hemp is a drug. So, we'll always have that bit. But I
Sure,
think more so it leans towards people are really excited about it. Because not
that's
many
awesome.
people like put two and two together.
Sure, nope, that's awesome, man. And if you would like, then we can pull that picture up. Where
Yeah.
did I? How did I do that? We're gonna go. I think it's this one here.
Yeah, I
There
love
we go.
So
Marcus is rolling up in the Farm Bill committee meeting hearing thing
oh
here.
yeah. I got some really nice stuff from Ignite dispensary before I left
There you go.
Wisconsin, and I lit it up in there just to show them that no one can get high off of it. No, but but what's funny is like I'm horrible. I don't really carry my phone in a case, so sometimes I drop it from time to time, and my phone got cracked right in the camera lens, and then I don't know, like some lint or whatever, like got stuck in the lens. And so when I'm snapping a picture, this is when the hemp debate's going on, is when I snap this picture, and so it's all hazy and everything.
That's
And
awesome.
I sent it to Bobby, and I was like, "Yo, man, this is like the coolest picture I've ever taken inside a government building."
It's your camera was working for the movement. It was showing you some love
Damn straight,
into what we were talking about. I love it.
damn straight beans, damn straight.
In the DC, so is this like was this in the White House or where? There's
No, no.
probably a
So
lot of different buildings.
this is the Longworth um, house office building. It's the second or third floor. So there's a balcony. If you see like the windows over to the right,
Yep.
it's a nice balcony out there. So when I actually had an opportunity to testify in this hearing room on hemp in 2022, July 2022, and so that's the House Agriculture Committee room. So there's like it's like all the people you can see in the back. That's all different congressmen. The people in front of me are either staffers or just the public. And then right in front of there, you can kind of see if you put your scroll. There you go, right there. If you see that bald head to the right over here, and he's in a that's
Yeah.
Derek. That's Derek
Okay.
Van right there.
All right.
So yeah, that's a picture of me being in the during the
That's
farm
awesome.
bill markup.
Is this a was there a gentleman on in the committee with a with a cowboy
No,
hat on?
that's Congresswoman Alma Adams. She's
Okay.
she's good people. She's good
All right.
people.
I
Yeah.
love it. Well, cool. Yeah, that was that made my day because everything else was kind of boring to me up to that point. So
Oh yeah, for
much
sure.
love for sharing that. We had a gentleman was asking a question here when you were there. Were there different stakeholders that got a chance to talk at all, or was it more so just the committee talking amongst themselves? Like, were farmers able to talk, or
Just committee members
okay?
themselves having a debate, and you could just watch it.
And if you want to share kind of where your stance is, or like what your takeaway was, there's been a lot of chatter on if this thing has a chance to pass. I feel like it's got to at some time. What's kind of your takeaway from the seemingly never-ending question of can we get these two sides to work together?
I think that if we see movement in the Senate in July with the farm bill, that we will probably see a farm bill being debated and voted on um, after the elections. So like December
Okay.
2024. So that's what I've been hearing anyways, is that the Senate's going to start moving on something in July and before the August recess, because they're gone for a month in August. So we'll see how that turns out. But um, it always comes down to like people, the grassroots. So like what I was always taught in school was the grassroots usually have 48 hours before a bill hits the floor in Congress to change it, either to kill it or to get it passed. So if we're trying to kill that piece, the Mary Miller amendment in the Farm Bill, that we would have to start organizing people. Like, let's just say a scenario would happen that it stays in the Farm Bill, and after the elections, it's still on the floor or whatever. We'd have to like mobilize everybody to start making phone calls, talking to their reps, and just telling them like, no, like kill it. But even like right now, like take for instance, so we're in June, July, everybody's still in Congress. By the time August rolls around, like if folks are really concerned about this amendment, that they start hitting those congressional districts, because those congressmen and senators are going to be home for that whole month. So it's a
Gotcha.
perfect time for you to go out where there ever are in the community and just be like, kill the amendment, like get rid of that. Because, Wisconsin has a really good cannabinoid market. And I think that has a lot to do with, you know, Rob Richard and a lot of the work he was doing, Philip Scott, all these different players. God, I can't remember his name now. Alan Robinson. So all these different people that I've heard that have been in the cannabinoid movement did a lot of work to make things happen. So to me, we have a pretty big stronghold here in Wisconsin. So if people wanted to raise their voice up, it'd be a good time just to call the district office. Like, don't call Capitol Hill. Call your district offices and get in touch with those staffers because they're the ones that are going to kick it up to Capitol Hill, and that's where you'll get a better bang for your buck. So,
Nope, I agree with that. Waldo says if the farm bill doesn't kill the industry, Voss will, with a very angry face. We call him Birdman around here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll see what happens. The unfortunate thing about politics, moving from policy now to politics, there's a difference. But politics, it's unfortunate because we have to have the Democrat Republican, like the partisan battle here, and doesn't look good for the Dems right now. So it may be a red wave this fall, and Voss will have power, or the Dems quit being idiots and like start thinking a little more strategic, and then we could actually have a blue wave that knocks Voss off his ass or Birdman. Um, it all really depends on the masses and how they're gonna, you know,
Move things, move the
move
meter,
things.
or
Exactly,
move the needle. There you go.
exactly,
Go with
exactly.
that.
So,
Headed, where was that on here? I know we also wanted to touch base. You had some interesting, well, so like the bowstring incident that you were talking about, where you were gonna go check that out, and then it was miraculously missing. Is it you ran into that a few, like when you were doing your research on hemp history? Did you find a few different dead ends in your research?
oh man, did I ever? So, 2016. And I just graduated from college, University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, and I got hired on to take over John Trudell's organization, Hempstead Project Heart. And I went out to DC and I went to the USDA's National Agricultural Library in Beltsville, Maryland. I went to the Special Collections Division and I went and dug up all this rich history. So this is all. So I did a lot of the groundwork in getting the rich history of Wisconsin hemp in front of lawmakers before the vote on the 2017 bill. And when I was in the Special Collections Division, USDA, I found this document. It's called The Economics of Hemp, and it was written by F. Elliott in 1941. And it detailed, it was like this thick. And I started paging through it. I'm like, this is really good information. I want a reproduction of this. I want a copy of it. And so I wrote down all the information and I submitted it when I left because the downside to the Special Collections Division is it's open at 8:30 in the morning, and then it closes at noon for lunch, and then it opens back up again at 1. So basically you have 8:30 to noon, and then 1 to 4, and if they're nice enough, like 4:30, they'll push it for you if you're like doing your research. So you have a very limited amount of time. And I was going through like boxes of stuff. What's cool is it was all the Leicester Dewey's historical record, like all of his notes, like everything. And if you guys don't know who Leicester Dewey is, he's basically the godfather of hemp. He's the one that created the Hemp for Victory campaign work. He did all the stuff leading up to the war. He was like a botanist that was brought on to USDA. I think it was like the Bureau of Plant Biology or something like that. He was a biologist. But what was interesting is that there was a former governor of Wisconsin who was like the third USDA secretary. I can't remember his name right now. It's horrible. Like I used to know all this stuff off the top of my head, and now I don't because I haven't been reading in a while. But that third USDA secretary hired Leicester Dewey, and the funny thing is he actually came from Wisconsin, so he was
Okay.
actually former governor of Wisconsin. Former governor, I can't remember right now, but I'll look it up in a second here. And basically, he hired Dewey. Dewey started working in like 1890 up until 1940, 1940s. He died in the 1940s. And I actually have a telegram I found in the Wisconsin Historical Society that talks about when Dewey died and what they were going to do afterwards. Because Alexander Wiley was a U.S. senator during the war effort, and he was the one that he was like our Charles Schumer. So like Charles Schumer now is like the guy. He's the majority leader of the Senate, but he's making all these different moves for New York. So like Alexander Wiley was making all these really good deals for us, and that's kind of how I guess the history of hemp in Wisconsin really got about. Was like Alexander Wiley, Leicester Dewey, and then Andrew Wright, Dr. Andrew Wright. So those are all like our, you talk about like godfathers of hemp for Wisconsin. That's our godfathers of hemp for Wisconsin.
Those are the ones who got it rolling.
Yep. So getting back to this document, I asked for the reproductive copy, and then I get all my stuff back. But the funny thing is that document was missing. So I call USDA and I'm like, hey, I asked for a reproduction of that document. Can you give it to me? They're like, no, we can't, unfortunately, because it's under administrative review right now by a specialist. We're actually not even supposed to show you that document. I was like, what the are you kidding me? And so for months there's an email exchange. I have all this stuff documented. There's an email exchange back and forth of like, is the specialist done? No, they're still working on it. Up until Obama left and Trump took over is basically like, and then once Trump took over, the document got sent over to Homeland Security for classification. And by then I'm like, all right, this is it. Like, I'm filing a FOIA request. So I found a lawyer, got a FOIA request going. And she was really good about it because she originally she worked in the administration and she handled FOIA requests. So she knew how the whole system and all that worked. And
That's crazy.
Get the documentation, and we finally get a response back. And they basically tell the lawyer, because she's like, there's not even anything in this letter. She calls Homeland Security and they're all like, yeah, it was sent for classification here and it's either been lost or destroyed. Like they don't know what happened to it. So in the time that I had it in my hand in 2016 of June 2016 until now, it's disappeared. So after the Farm Bill got passed, I went back out to DC and I was doing some work with the National State Departments of Agriculture. I went to one of their briefings, and I saw these like heads of Department of Agriculture, and there was one from Kentucky there, and they're all talking about how they need more data, more information to kind of understand how hemp grows really well in their region. And I raised my hand and I go, has anybody on the panel ever been to the National Agricultural Library in Beltsville, Maryland, Special Collections Division? Because there's a wealth of knowledge there from Leicester Dewey, who gathered all this data and did all this research on hemp throughout the whole country, and it'd be a really good starting point for anybody that's trying to gather enough data in their state. And first one, I think he was from like Montana, didn't really know, but I didn't know this at the time, but like the next two guys gave this very candid political like answer, and I was kind of like, you didn't really answer my question. And so I was there with like some lawyers too, like people I work with in the network. And basically I get up and I walk over and I go see the lawyers. And this one lawyer, he's really sharp. He goes, Marcus, you're really good. Like you asked that question really good, and like like if you've been schooled in cross examination, that was a really good. I was like, yeah, I have actually. He goes, I want to tell you something. When you asked that question to that panel, the guy from Kentucky swallowed funny. And I was like, oh, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, I know where your document is. And I was like, where is it? He goes, it's in a tobacco barn somewhere in Kentucky, and it's not going to see the light of day. And I was like, I don't doubt it. And after that happened, it even got worse because prior to that hearing where I answered that question, I met with the House Ag Committee and I was trying to get them to help me locate this document. And so they were already on board. And so after that hearing, and when I answered that, I asked that question and all that stuff happened, they changed their tune and they're all like, basically, you're on your own, Mr. Grignon. Like, we're not going to help you. And I think what it is like, I don't know. This is like speculation now. So we're in the speculative space here. I think there is some important information in that document, The Economics of Hemp, written by F.F. Elliott in 1941, that gives a upper hand to the state of Wisconsin over everybody else. And I don't think Mitch McConnell and the Kentucky folks over there wanted that document to be seen the light of day. So somebody who has that much power in Washington, somebody like Mitch McConnell, could do something like that, like send it over to Homeland Security to get it classified, and then it just gets disappeared. Like, it's just,
that's crazy. Who was it by again? I'm sorry, I gotta put this.
F.F. Elliott. F.F. Elliott.
I'm gonna try and track that down one day, Mark.
Yeah, Bureau of Agricultural Economics at USDA. So,
and it was the Economics of Hemp.
Economics of Hemp, 1941.
Interesting, man.
Yeah.
And so that's
even to this day, they're still, still scared of hemp. Like that's the only thing I can think of.
Right. I hear you, man.
The logical explanation.
Sure. We got Jake stop by. He says, I haven't been on here for a while. I was wondering how it's going to fully legalize weed. It would still be in the definite trying phases. I would say the units, the voice is coming together. There's been a couple different paths that have crossed ways again, trying to get some momentum build back up between the people and the farmers of the state. The farm bill has thrown a wrench into the hemp industry of Wisconsin. So that's bringing some of the businesses together. So pressure is mounting. Had a great meeting this morning with a Republican. And it seems to be known that legalization is coming. And I think the most realistic time frame would be next year. But obviously, we're going to do everything we can to try and push that through and to work on the education. That still definitely seems to be, at least for me, Mark, when I meet with folks from Wisconsin, whether it's senators or state representatives, I would say I'm sure there's a lot of politics that go on with it too. Like, of course, right? That's unfortunately what the U.S., that's how it's run. But there's also just a ton of uneducation or lack of education and lack of understanding. And not only what cannabis brings for some people in their relief, their ailments, that kind of thing, but also with what they have in the hemp industry right now, that the product offering across the state. So it's still very much a sticky situation, but I feel like, there's not a way to tell how close we are, but I feel like we're really starting to spread across the state, if that makes sense. Mark, what's your kind of take on that, boss?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing is always trying to push something as I guess controversial in Wisconsin because we're such a purple state. But I think that what it comes down to is always education. I think that's the thing with hemp was that we just educated. I remember Rob Richard, one of the first conversations I had with him, he was like, we just wrapped up and he goes, Mark, I keep going to all these state senators and state representatives and talking to them about hemp and talking about the history of hemp in Wisconsin, but I can't really go and like say, oh, go to this website and this is where all the information is. Like, do you have anything that I could use? And I was like, yeah, here's a whole flash drive of stuff I've gathered over time. Stuff from the Steenbach Library at UW-Madison, the Wisconsin Historical Society, and then also the Library of Congress and the Agricultural Library in Beltsville, Maryland. And so he took all that information and he got really inspired by it. And he started showing it to all these lawmakers, and that's really where things happened. So when we talk about like how we move things forward in Wisconsin, it really comes down to like local level and really pushing it and really getting your lawmaker to understand the benefits of this. Because I think no one really understands that, terpenes within a cannabis plant can be used to treat gunshot wounds. No one knows that, some of the things around CBG is actually really good for Alzheimer's patients or elderly folks who get aggressive at the nursing home. Like, there's these different discoveries we're finding with the cannabinoids and the endocannabinoid system that, no one really talks about that, and not many people really know about it. And everyone knows that CBD and like hemp and all these different things, Delta 8, they know all this stuff, but then do they really know the benefits of what this can really do? And I think that's what we really be stressing is just the benefits of what this plant can really do for us. It's education, education, education. Always. It's always going to be an uphill battle because we're dealing with 70 years of misinformation, the reefer madness, just say no, like all this nonsense. And so we
Right.
have to basically break it all down.
There really is no other word for it. We got Jill in the house. Thanks for stopping by, Jill. Oh, your son graduated. Congratulations on that front. Definitely nothing to take lightly, especially in today's crazy world. I feel like, I don't know, Mark, I got a kid on the way. You've got kids. I don't know. It just feels like, I feel like when I graduated, I was like, hey, well, that's cool. But like a lot of people do, the majority does. But like getting ready to raise a kid, I'm like, I sure hope I can get her through school. Like, it's starting to make sense. All these little things are all achievements. So it's definitely not anything to toss rocks at. Danny says natural benefits, brother. Absolutely. Jake says, I hope they do. They have THCA legalized in a lot of places. Kind of. Yeah, it's kind of a thing. It's very interesting times out there. What's your take on THCA, Marcus?
Well, hold on a second here. Let me
Yeah,
get
yeah.
this. Let me do some.
Oh boy. Hang on to your computer screens, folks, or your phone screen.
So, can anybody see this? You see this, Beans?
Oh, let's see here. Yes, sir.
So, the DEA released this statement in like 2016, basically trying to create this, I guess, more clarification on kind of the cannabinoids and everything that are going on. So 2016 is what really opened the door for the DEA to open more opportunities for cannabis researchers. And the thing that they do is they call this thing called the bulk manufacturing license. And what you can do is you can actually grow cannabis to sell it to the DEA, and they buy quotas every year of this cannabis for research purposes. So the monopoly for the last, for decades has always been the University of Mississippi. But now that the DEA has opened these licenses, like people are applying for them, which is really interesting. Hold on, I'm gonna go back and pick a different slide here to share the screen. So when everything was going on in like during the pandemic, there was this whole thing of Federal Register notice. Let's get through this first. Federal Register notice. Basically, all these federal agencies put forward these rules, regulations, whatever it is, and you can actually read everything on this Federal Register notice. It's called the Daily Journal of the United States Government. And what's interesting about these Federal Register notices is that you can actually read people's licenses or applications to become a bulk manufacturer of marijuana. So right here, this is API Global LLC. They submitted their application. But what's interesting is that in March of 2020, like right when COVID's hitting, the DEA drops their rules and they leave it open for like 60 days or 30 days, or I can't remember what it was. I think it was 60 days. And in that time frame, like lockdown happens, everybody's like running around like crazy, or they're just stuck in their house. Well, I'm sitting on my computer looking at all this stuff because I had to do, research and work and everything. And I found that the DEA opened the bulk manufacturing of controlled substances to everybody. And so you can basically apply for it as long as you meet the qualifications. And the qualifications are everything that's dictated underneath the UN Single Convention Treaty of Narcotics of 1961. And so anybody that ever wants to like learn how to like produce cannabis that they could sell to the DEA, you have to follow that treaty. That treaty is basically what made the DEA. But basically, as you can like look down here, it's just talking about, this is what they're going to be looking at, and this is what they're going to be producing. But basically, they're producing it and then they're selling it back to the DEA. It's crazy. So
What the hell?
there's all this stuff already going on right now, and it's not just cannabis. Like you look at some of these bulk manufacturing licenses, and people are like producing cocaine. They're producing psilocybin. They're producing mescaline. Like all these different things. And I'm just like,
what the hell?
But what's even crazier about this is that the DEA, they confiscate people's, cannabis and whatever else, and then they reverse distribute it back out into the world. So they go in and they like, take all this, diversion of drugs or whatever it is, and then they sell it back out in the world to researchers to research it and study more about it. It's the most crazy monopolistic system I've ever seen in my
Sounds
life.
like a political way to be a drug dealer.
Pretty much. It pretty much is. So
Jeez.
Getting back to THCA, and I know that we're at the top of the hour, but THCA as a hemp grower, I got audited last fall by USDA for my hemp license, and they asked me if I was producing any THCA, and I was like, oh, no, I'm just fiber and grain. They're like, okay, that's good, because we're not going to be regulating THCA, and it's not really even our purview to regulate THCA. It's going to be going to DEA. So they put out a statement, I know, recently about how they're going to start cracking down on THCA. So I guess we'll see where that goes. But as of right now, there's some areas that are still selling it and some areas that aren't selling it. So it all depends.
Sure. Again, we at Let's Legalize Wisconsin, we just highly recommend your THCA. You treat it like something you got from Michigan. Keep it in a bag. Wait till you get to your safe place. And again, that just has a lot to do with the curing process and everything as well. So when it gets tested, it could show up below the threshold, but once it's harvested and converts, it could pop hot. So, and if you leave it in your glove box, it could decarboxylize. Just treat it as if it's the real stuff. Be careful with it. That's the only way around it. Marcus, what else you got for me, boss? We hit a lot of stuff. I had a few notes. I got everything I had on my notes and then some, but that doesn't mean we hit everything that you had, buddy. What else you got for us, or anybody in the comments?
I know I've been reading the Federal Register notice on the rescheduling of cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. I am partway through it right now. I was hoping to have read it tonight, but I just...
How long of a product are we, or how long of a docket is that one?
It's long. Let me see if I can track it down here for you. Hold on.
Gee, I can't imagine, dude.
Oh, man, it's horrible. And then trying to like download it as a PDF and then trying to read it, it's really hard because they like put the print so small, so you have to like really like
move it around. And,
oh yeah, is that right? Is that?
I swear they do that on purpose, man.
So here it is,
Trying
right?
to mess with us.
So here we are. I'm right in the thick of it. So if you can see, look at.
Oh my god. Yeah. This is one of those. I'll let you read it. You let me know what you find, buddy.
Yeah. That's kind of what
you're
I'm
more the comprehender of policy for sure.
Yeah. So my hope is my hope is basically to read this and then maybe come back and talk more about it. Maybe we just have a whole podcast on that because
that'd be great.
Yeah, I think
there's a lot of questions.
There's a lot to it. So,
Jake was wondering, do you know if they want to fully legalize cannabis by next year? I know in speaking to Republicans this morning, they were still thought that their state-run dispensary program was going to pass this last session. So trying to get them up to snuff with why that's a terrible idea. But again, I think a lot of it comes down to, both parties want to claim this as their victory, would be my understanding. But I think as long as we just keep making noise, making a ruckus, and getting the pressure on them, especially if we show up in numbers when we vote, and just start holding these people accountable. They can't just sit back and try to play it safe on everything and say, "Well, we're not going to talk about that right now." It's very what's your problem with cannabis? This is how we got to approach these folks.
Yep.
But I just, from my understanding, next year would definitely be the expectation if, again, both parties somehow find a way to put those swords from clashing and just fucking move forward with the damn thing.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
All right, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time, Mark. Really appreciate everything you do for the folks when it comes to cannabis, hemp, all things as a plants. It's just, man, it's crazy that, again, it really started for me on the activism side or the advocacy side when I saw that's what you were doing essentially for hemp farmers when I was still in sales. And as you know, that's something that was just kind of my forte for some time, but I never really, I enjoyed talking to people, but I don't know. I didn't like being told, "Oh, you need to sell more," or, "Oh, that's cool, but try to hit this percentage." So again, really appreciate you opening my eyes for when it comes to advocacy work, and hopefully we'll be able to continue this journey in Wisconsin. Hopefully we can get this thing going, man.
Hell yeah, man. I'm all for it.
All right. Well, I appreciate you. Appreciate everyone stopping out on a Friday evening. Hopefully you guys get a chance to relax this weekend. I'll be out in Milwaukee tomorrow at the Buds and Brews. Make sure you check out the information or Brews and Buds. Keep saying Buds and Brews because to me Buds come before Brews, but it's Brews and Buds. Be out there in Milwaukee. Make sure you guys stop out tomorrow if you're around the area. It's 11 to 4. Then next week we got Afro Man. We're going to be doing the ticket giveaway here at 9 o'clock. So I'll post to be going out onto who won those tickets. Appreciate everybody. Have a good evening. See you, Mark. Appreciate you, boss.